ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the podcast studio. I'm Rory McKernan, and I'm here, not just saying this, one of my favorite people.
Thank you.
Of all, not just Mayhem. I think you're wonderful. Paige Powers is in the house. And don't talk about physically yet, but for context for viewers who are, the internet's forever. So we're in between the 2024 Open and semi quarterfinals. So how are you doing overall? What's your status? How you feeling?
I'm doing good. I am ready to get into quarters. I feel like the Open is always, it's not very stressful just because I know that I'll make it to quarterfinals unless something catastrophic happens. But it kind of just drags on. For 3 weeks. I was actually just talking with Dom about this, I think. We can't believe it was ever 5 weeks.
Right.
That's a long time. And it's
for everyone, gym owners and
everyone.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's only one workout a week, and I typically never redo them anymore. I used to. Back when it was 5 weeks, I'd redo, try to get the best score. But even after the 3 weeks, your CNS is whoa, we need to take a day or two to kind of chill.
Yeah.
So I've definitely been doing that. And I feel like this year I'm a lot better about taking care of myself physically and mentally, whereas before I would have just been whatever, back to training, going hard.
Having said that, though, now let's tell everybody how you feel.
This is the raw emotional. I woke up this morning and we did a row handstand walk and double dumbbell overhead lunge yesterday.
I watched you guys do it. Yep.
Yeah, it was pretty nasty. I could even feel my traps during it were already getting tight, but I woke up and I sleep sideways and kind of on my side but on my stomach, and so my neck was turned and
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
My neck was turned and I tried to get up and I couldn't turn my neck back because it was kinked because of my traps, which happens all the time. And then randomly, I didn't even do any lifting yesterday. I just did zone 2 after that. And I tried to turn my back to get up and my rib was out. And so now I'm just sitting here with I can feel my traps and my rib. I can't shift too
I'm
much.
fine. Everyone's fine. Yeah. I feel great.
Yeah. I'm okay, I'm only 21, but my body feels it's way older than that.
That's what I was thinking in the back of my head. I'm oh, dude, you're in trouble. You're in trouble.
Yeah, it's the 21 competitive years.
Yes.
Basically been doing something since I was out of the womb. So
100%. I want to actually ask about one thing you said where you're this year seemed to matter less. We talked about it on our podcast too. And since you're in Rich Froning's chair, you're you're rich today. Did it feel that way legitimately? Because I think it's probably different for every single athlete, but the most indicative thing for me was Roman redid a workout. I'm okay, clearly he cares about it, but you're saying you didn't really redo any. Did this year, because so many people go to quarterfinals, actually feel like it mattered less? Do you still feel pressure to perform?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's just the natural competitive instinct of you never want to go into a competition, even if you know you're going to move on to the next stage. You don't want to not give it your all. But at the same time, just with my mental space this year, and competing at Wodapalooza and doing Rogue, I felt I just needed a little bit of a competitive break. I wasn't quite ready to get into it during the Open.
Mm-hmm.
I just needed that little bit more time until quarterfinals to shift back into that. So I truly just treated the Open workouts this year knowing that I was going to go into it just one and done, no matter if I got into the workout and slowed down and wasn't feeling it and wasn't very happy with my performance, or whether I did great, I was just gonna be satisfied with what it was and know that there was pressure with last year in the Open getting second, and then this year I was 60 something, but I really didn't even look at the leaderboard until everything was over.
Good for you.
I've never done that before. I've never been the person in competition that doesn't look at the leaderboard after the workout. But I felt it was mentally better to do that. And it was almost tougher to not go on after the first workout and look at where I was. But yeah, it was better to kind of stay out of that competitive and just go in there, get it done, and then actually be able to train properly after that.
100%. Yeah, we were laughing about it because, and I don't know if you looked at percentage wise where you were on the leaderboard, but I think that we said, I don't have the data in front of me, but the stat was something along the lines of, as a man, if you finish somewhere in like the 11s on this previous workout, which was sort of modest for like some of the top athletes, right? No, sorry, it was almost 12 minutes. Then you were still in the top 1%, like not 25%, you're in the top 1%. So when you look at it, you're like, I'm going through.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. That actually reminds me of like, kind of related, but Rich, I watched him do the workout on, what was it, the Friday Night Lights? Yeah. And I got 9:48 on that workout. I was like kind of sunning it. Like, I mean, it hurt at that end. Like, yes, that's a workout that I could do again, whereas the first workout I couldn't. I had Fran lung for like 3 days after. But Angelo was telling me after he asked what Rich got, and he was like, I was kind of just like pacing it and holding back and got like 9:58 or something. I was like, that's only 10 seconds slower than I was. I was dying.
I just want to see how my lat felt. I kind of took it for a walk through.
Yeah,
exactly.
No big deal. Yeah. So I was like, cool. It's good to know that he's still kicking all of our butts and
that's what I said.
Not training.
I saw it and I was like, man, you still got it, bro.
Yeah. He still got it.
He was dismissive, but he still got it.
Yeah.
Well, because part of the point of these is to expose people to like more of you and your background and who you are as a person, not just your athletic background. Let's kind of pivot off of the Froning thing because you guys have some shared background in the fact that actually, no matter where I go now, okay, so it's you and Scott in this room, like I'm always outnumbered by Michiganders.
Yes.
Like
it's the weirdest thing.
You can't escape it now.
Yeah. Seriously. There's so many of us down here, and I don't know if it has to do with mostly the weather. Like it's a nice escape from that. Yeah. Yeah. Or just I don't know why Cookeville too. Like Michiganders just move to Cookeville.
It's a draw, man. It's a draw. You got it's like a Detroit Lions safe haven and all that kind of stuff. But what city did you grow up in?
I grew up in Washington Township. It's like 40 minutes north of Detroit. Okay.
And I mean, you started CrossFit at such a young age that I imagine that was one of your first sports, but I also found out the hard way, I think in Italy, that you've got a swimming background. You're a tremendous swimmer. Because I tried to keep up with all of you guys in a pool workout and it didn't go well.
Yeah.
But was that your main sport or what else did you?
So actually gymnastics was my main sport. I did that from pretty much the time that I could walk. My mom put me in like the preschool or whatever classes it was. And then I did that until I was 14. And then that's where I picked up CrossFit and swim and dive at the same time.
Oh, wow.
But I always grew up like on the water, on the lake, in pools. My dad swam D1 and swam D1 in college. And so I was always very like familiar and comfortable with water. So that was something that I picked up pretty easily when I started high school swim. And I really only started it because I was doing diving, which translated nice from gymnastics into that.
Sure.
And I really enjoyed diving the first like 2 years that I did it. But I just randomly hop in. Like my swim coach in high school was amazing. She would just like let me hop in and do like a 50 during a meet. And so I wasn't like very good, but that kind of kicked out more of the competitive side of me, which can't really like control that. So, I think it was my junior year that I think I dove that year. Honestly, I don't even remember. I think I still dove that year, but I focused more on like swimming. So I like started doing pretty much all the practices and doing what I could, but I was still doing CrossFit.
And was it all shorter? Like you literally raced the 50?
So yeah, literally my freshman year only did the 50.
That's
or it was
cool
like,
race. Yeah, that's just all out to the wall, right?
Yeah. And it wasn't very fast, but it was also like, I feel like it was pretty decent for somebody that's never really actually swam in their life. Like, yes, I did swim in the lake, but it was like doggy paddle, not actual swimming. And I was like, oh, hey, I can actually like kind of get good for this for high school. And I just wanted to get like better and better and like learn more strokes and all of that. And I started swimming after that. The following years I'd do like the 100, 50 and 100, so still like very sprinty. And then I learned to fly a little bit. my coach threw me in like some of the relays, so I just do 50 fly. And then I remember, I think it was my junior or senior year, I did the 100 fly solo for the first time. And it was literally the hardest workout I've ever done. I thought I was going to drown in that pool. It was like, it hit me after 75 meters. I was like, I'm going to die. Like, I don't think I'm going to finish this race. And it went horrible, but that was something where I was like super motivated to get better at that.
It went horrible as in your result was bad, or is just that difficult?
No, really? Both. Yeah. I was like, I was dying inside and my result was horrible. I was in like the easiest heat.
Yeah.
It was like literally exhibition, so I didn't even count.
Okay.
But my dad also swam in high school, and he like set records at his high school for fly.
Oh,
so I was like
all sorts of new stuff.
Yeah, I was like extra motivated to like take after my dad and learn fly. So it ended up getting a lot better towards like end of senior year. Still not great, but I'd actually like to go back now and like try it again. Because I feel like I'd be way better.
You mean like actually do a swim meet?
Oh yeah. I'd love to. And it's
Dude, we should actually, let's organize it.
I'm down.
We'll do like a CrossFitters swim meet. So you want to go against like the best of the best swimmers, but I think that would be really fun to do actual events.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, that's okay. I was just going to say, I think I might have a little bit of an edge just because I can, like, get off the blocks well and do the flip turns.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of swimming, especially when it comes down to 50s or 100s. That's pretty much all it is.
Well, I mean, and I'm guessing that, especially because you were on the lakes and stuff, like you probably don't notice it as much, but I think it's a massive edge, especially when you guys do events at the games, whether it's in a pool, but especially in open water, because just the familiarity, like, forget about the fact that you're more fit and you have better technique, but some people get really uncomfortable in open water.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I even remember I was swimming already for a year in high school, and when I did my first triathlon in open water, I, like, couldn't even put my face in the water because I'd be so panicky.
Yeah.
And I was comfortable swimming. I had swam in a lake all my life, but it was something about putting, like, my face in the water that, like, I couldn't breathe. And I think, I mean, I know, like, a lot of people go through that too, but it's, like, even experienced swimmers, like, I think they kind of have to, like, get over that. But now I'll take open water swimming any day.
And
I love it.
Can you tell in those events that you've got, like, an edge, or are you going with an additional kind of confidence boost?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, and I think that's one that's just fun for me too, because I just enjoy swimming. Yeah. So then it's, like, an extra, like, yeah, I know that I'm pretty decent at it for a CrossFitter. But I also know that I'm going to have fun during it.
Sure.
And it's like, it's kind of that different kind of hurt. Like, you can make it hurt, but still enjoy it. Whereas if it's something like thrusters, it hurts and it just hurts. I'm not really going to enjoy it, but I'm going to do it.
Right. Like maybe like the result, but not the actual thing. So one thing I can't let go is the diving, because I just don't know a lot about the sport.
Okay.
So you kind of, I don't know, how does it work? Like, do they say, hey, you're going to be great at this particular one, or do you work up from, like, the lower board and certain tricks to, like, higher and higher, or you just, how does it work? So
for a high school dive, it's only the 3 meter.
Oh, okay.
So there's 3 meter, 5 meter, 10 meter, and 3 and 5 are, like, springboard, and then 10 is platform. And so I do that whenever I did club dive.
Okay.
10 meter I didn't do much of, just because it's, like, kind of scary.
Yeah, sure.
That's
it's 30 like feet in the air ish. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's, like, kind of exhilarating but scary at the same time.
Sure.
But
like, just to jump off straight up, like, feet first, much less do, like, spinny flippy twisty things.
Yeah. I never did spinny flippy twisty things off that one. But yeah, it was 3 meters, like, what I focused on. And that's, like, all they had at high school, the high school level. But basically there's, I think it's 6 different dives. There's a forward dive, back dive, reverse dive, inward dive, and twist. I think that's it.
Okay.
And so 5. And you have to hit one of each of those dives. And then there's, like, I believe it was, like, 1 week where, like, it switched the dive that you didn't have to do. So it was, like, my favorite was when I didn't have to do a reverse dive at the meet, because I didn't like those at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, I mean, yeah.
It's a crazy
like
sport.
Trying to think back. I like barely even remember. I just remember like actually doing the dives. Oh, and one thing about it is it's kind of like golf where everybody has to be silent while you're diving. And then like if somebody makes a noise during it, like during your dive, you can literally like ask to redo the dive.
Oh, that's cool.
It was cool, but also like nerve wracking because everybody's like quiet and looking at you and you're the only one up there.
Can you imagine if somebody was like that was the CrossFit Games?
Yeah.
You know, just silence.
Silence. Yeah. I was like, I almost wanted people to like get going. Yeah. Just because I didn't really like the silence. But I mean, it was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it sounds like a really, really cool background. You probably got some cool tricks in your back pocket still.
Maybe.
Maybe. So let's draw the line then. Like, obviously now you're in Cookeville.
Mm-hmm.
In Michigan, you basically, was Darren was your first coach, or how did that work out? Like, how were you introduced to Darren, and how did that evolve into you kind of coming to Mayhem?
So Darren wasn't my first coach. My first coach was like the guy that I literally just like walked into his affiliate, and he had been coaching one of my friends from gymnastics, and he coached her to the games as a teenager, and so he ended up coaching me, her, and another girl to the games. And then after that, my brother had moved down to Tech, and
I know because we were frenemies in class. We would come to the A15 class. You didn't know this?
I didn't know that.
Oh,
no,
dude,
that's hilarious.
Yeah, when I first moved here, was that in 2018 or so? Anyways, when I first moved here, he was doing the morning classes.
Okay.
And we would work out, and like it was precious few workouts I could even come close to him on. But when I had him, I would talk so much trash.
Yeah, he's that sneaky fit. It's
he's
like
super fit.
Yeah, and you wouldn't look at him and think that he's like as fit or as strong as he is.
Oh yeah, totally.
And people are always like, "Oh my gosh, like,
easy
that's
to
crazy."
Underestimate. And then I was like, "Dang it."
Yeah.
This kid's good.
Yeah. So he moved to Tech, and I came down to visit him when we moved him into his dorm, and that's where I met Jess and Darren.
Okay.
And I was working with M2 Performance Nutrition, who Jess works for.
Okay.
And I was working with Mike, who owns the company, and he told Jess that I was like coming down and just to like say hello and like kind of be like a friendly face. And so that's how I got to like talking with her. And then Darren is kind of just Darren, social butterfly. And like my mom and Carson had met him before when they visited the campus. And I don't know, we kind of just like got to talking and found out that they're from 30 minutes, like where we lived in Michigan, and that they were moving back in like, I think like 6 months. And at that time I was like looking for a new gym because mine had gone under and like under different ownership. And I was like, hey, do you have any gyms or like any family that I can work out with in Michigan? And they sent me their cousin JJ, his number. And the first time I showed up he has like a pole barn that's really nice. It's like the real deal. It's a whole gym in a barn. And kind of like here at the barn. And I like texted him. I was like, hey, can I like just come try it out? And it was like a 30-minute drive for like, I was 16 at the time. Like that's, you know, in full-time school, like 7 hours of school. And then it's like a 30-minute drive on top of that. I was like, I'm just going to try out like maybe once a week. And so they make fun of me for it now. Like just a little 16-year-old girl showing up to their barn, literally in the middle of nowhere, Michigan. It's like 100%. Out in the country pretty much.
Right.
And started working out there. And then it was 1 day a week. And then it became 2, 3. And then I started going there every day. And JJ kind of helped coach me until Jess and Darren moved up, and then Darren kind of took over that. And the rest is history.
The rest is
and history. And then he got sick of me and shipped me down here.
Well, actually, I mean, what was the conversation like? Hey, there's actually, I don't even put words in your mouth. Like what happened where you were like, hey, love this, but I'm going to go to Mayhem to be there?
Yeah, honestly, like Darren was the one that really like encouraged it. Not that he like wanted to see me move away or, you know, he knew that it was like probably gonna be tough for like my mom and dad. I was the only one left there. So he didn't want to like, he felt bad kind of about saying it, but he was like, hey, if you want to take like making this a career to the next level, like the best thing for you would to be like to move down to Mayhem and to train under Rich and to train with even just like the group environment and like get a push every day. And he's like, like really we can only do so much up here. And it's like, you know, he was kind of in his little retirement phase, like beginning it. And so he was still super, super fit and kicking my butt. But he's like, you need more of a group environment of like everybody around you to like be in the same boat of like, we're all trying to make this our jobs. And like, if you want to know what that looks like, you need to move. So
did you buy in immediately? Did it take some convincing?
Yeah, it took a little bit. And I mean, I've always been more of an independent person. So I was like kind of gung ho on like moving down here and kind of like doing my own thing. And I don't know, at the same time, it was like, I think the hardest part was like the financials of it. Because I was 18. I had just graduated high school. I took a gap year and still haven't been back
gap years
at college. Yeah, gap years. But from my side, I was like, I don't want to put a burden on my parents of like, I couldn't do this if they didn't support me through it.
Sure.
And they were basically just like, hey, you're only this young. You only have this much like talent and potential one time in your life. So like, we're here to support you. And like, if that takes you moving, like they were definitely more comfortable with like my brother being here and me having family here. And, you know, they knew like Rich and Tasia that was here at the time and Haley and like the group that was here when I first moved here. They knew them pretty well and trusted like the company that I'd be in.
Yeah.
So they're like, we're all for supporting you to get you to where you need to be, which I'm super grateful for.
Yeah, they're pretty awesome.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
And if we fast forward now, they're not living here, but starting to spend a lot more time here. So you've drug them along.
Yeah, gonna make them cook billions.
Love it. Okay, and so what was I don't want to say like, how did your reality meet the expectations, but you know, what were the key factors that were kind of different? Like what was the biggest difference you noticed in moving from, you know, you're just training with the Finn boys, but with Darren especially, to this group environment?
Yeah, I got my butt kicked every day. It was honestly such a hard adjustment because I almost left the gym feeling like defeated every day, but like in a good way, to where I was like, I just want to keep up with them. Like that was my goal, was just to like keep up with them. And whether it was like, you know, 4 sets out of the 8, like it was a new goal every day of like, okay, I got 4 sets today. Now I'm going to make it 5 sets tomorrow that I can like try and keep up. And I just like leave every workout. Like I was on the floor after every workout, just like literally trying to keep up. And then it was like, slowly you just get like one win after another. And like, it kind of built my confidence to where like I went into semifinals that year in 2022. I was like, I had no clue where I stacked against any of my other competitors, but I knew where I like was compared to the people I train with. And I still wasn't on their level, but they're so good here that I was like, I had some sort of confidence of like, hey, I'm actually like a lot fitter than I give myself credit for. And just because I lose every day in training doesn't mean I'm like not fit compared to the field. I'm just training with like the best of the best.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was you that told me this. 'Cause I do remember hearing that, like that was a flip that had to be switched to be like, not the best here in Mayhem, or especially like if you're working out next to Rich, can actually mean that you are the best in your, you know, environment whenever you go out there to take the competition field. But it is hard to keep that in, you know, kind of your frame of reference when you're here. Like, were the first weeks, months, whatever, difficult, or did you know, was it easy mentally to kind of figure out what you just described? That you didn't have to be winning every day in the gym.
Yeah, a little bit of both. And yeah, I mean, it definitely, it was difficult, but at the same time, I had like really good people around me to kind of helped me through that and like know that it's okay to not win workouts every day in training. Like that's not where it matters. And to like put my energy towards where it matters and just like get better is the goal in training, just to get better, like for yourself and not to be better than everybody else in training. And I think that's the beautiful thing about the group training environment is that like there's always going to be people that have their different strengths and weaknesses, and you're most likely never going to be the fittest person in the group on every single workout. So it's like you kind of never really know what you're going to get when you're going into the workout. And it's like it's just a fun push because you're never going to just be like absolutely demolishing everyone. You're always going to get a push from somebody
100%
in the group.
We'll talk about which people give the push, but like I'm interested, you said there was a good group of people here who were there to support you. Like kind of who are the standouts in that? Who did you or who do you spend the most time with, and kind of like how do they fit into your life in terms of your support structure? Yeah,
I think like Bailey is somebody that stands out, and I mean we're such good friends now, and like we moved here around the same time, and I was just like really drawn to her at first, and I don't know if it's maybe just because we were both like kind of the newer people of the group. And we had come down here and like train with the group before, but we were kind of both like the newbies. So we kind of just like stuck together and we started like partnering a lot. And it turned into every workout we had partnered together.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's been such a huge blessing, and she just like the godliness that she brings to here and like her openness and vulnerability to that has helped me so much in my faith journey. And like, you know, that spreads to everybody too, like Tyler, Luke, Guy, Rich. They were all just so like open about it, and that definitely like helped me and showed me how I can bring that into like the CrossFit space. And yeah, I think Bailey definitely like I resonated with her, and that kind of kickstarted that. But yeah, she's really been there with me through the thick and thin of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, sometimes I've had to, you know, you have a horrible training day and just break down to her, and she's there for me. So
she just kind of have a shine, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like walk into the,
she has, she has
just
that
walk into the
shine.
coffee shop and I'm like, oh, Bailey's going to make me smile. She's warm fuzzy.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. And was it, sorry, I don't know why my mind went here, but we also got to do some cool stuff. And I'm thinking particularly of like the Italy trip, but you've got mm-hmm. the tight group of people that you got to do. And obviously that's important in training and in competition. But even stuff like that, like when we went to Sardinia, I thought was, I don't know, it was a great way to kind of like build friendships and do something completely off the radar and unique.
Absolutely.
The only reason that makes it not a dream vacation is if you're gluten-free. Yeah. I think that's when I figured out, I think that's when I learned that you were gluten-free, and I'm like, oh my gosh, eating like an athlete is difficult enough. Mm-hmm. Or being gluten-free and not being an athlete is difficult enough. How did you figure that out? I know this is a hard right turn, but how did you discover that was your lot in life? If you went to Italy, you would still have to eat gluten-free pasta. Yeah.
Like how did I first find out that I had celiac?
Yeah.
So that was around the same time that I quit gymnastics when I was 14. I remember that season was super hard because I didn't know. I mean, I was definitely dealing with some sort of like anxiety with competing in gymnastics in general. And like I had just had my first major injury where I dislocated my knee and then finished the rest of that season out. And that was the first time when I dislocated my knee and took time off where I was like, okay, I actually don't think I love this as much as I thought that I did anymore. And so it was a hard season, but I was like, constantly having stomach aches during practice. I was constantly tired. I'd literally fall asleep in school, like fall asleep on the 5-minute car ride to gymnastics. I was sleeping like 12 hours a night, like basically in a coma sleep. Like it was, I didn't think anything of it. I just thought that I had a lot on my plate dealing with like just trying to get through that last season of gymnastics and like school and just like stress, normal stress.
Sure.
And my mom was like, hey, there's like something's not right. Like we need to get you checked out. And so I went to the doctor probably like 4 or 5 times, and I had to like switch doctors. And every time they screened me for depression. I was like, nope, like I've passed this test like 5 times now.
Right.
Like I don't know I'm not trying to convince you, like not trying to convince myself. And then they tested for like mono to see if it was just like a long lasting something. And they're like, the symptoms are just so weird. Like we don't even know like what to go for. And then my doctor was like, okay, I'm just going to grab your blood work one more time, test you for celiac, and just see if that's like, she's like, there's no way that it is, but we're going to do it just in case.
Why? Like, why the doubt?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Honestly, I don't know. And it's like, I think the strange thing with celiac is there's so many different like symptoms that you can have that you wouldn't think would correlate.
Yeah, right.
And like I found out a lot after I was diagnosed and went completely gluten-free. Like I was having brain fog. Like school was super hard because like my brain just wasn't functioning properly.
Right.
Which is like the strangest thing, that like lethargy, just like sleeping all the time. I had rashes on my arms that went away. The like horrible stomach aches after eating, those went away.
It was just an immediate corner turned.
Yeah. And then like also like hormonal things, like they like between stopping gymnastics and going gluten-free, it was like complete change. And then, so pretty much, she going back to like, she tested my blood work, that came back positive. She's like, we just have to make sure, like take a scope of your stomach and like take a piece of tissue from there to test that. Because sometimes I guess the blood work comes back as a false positive. Okay. But they took the tissue and that came back as, like I 100% had it.
Yeah.
And I also had like a very severe ulcer in my stomach. So pretty much I was like so tired and like having stomach aches because I wasn't getting any benefit from eating food. Like my body wasn't absorbing any of that. And so that was like something that they didn't really expect to see in there. But yeah, like went gluten-free, felt so much better. And I was like, there was points where I was like, do I really have to do this? Like, can't I just like take something and like deal with the stomach aches?
Give me a pill or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And they were like making sure, like really drilling that like I did, because you can end up like getting diabetes or cancer because it's an autoimmune disease.
Right.
So they're like, it's better for your long-term health. So it's like, I'm very grateful it's something that, I can eat gluten and not be like anaphylactic or that's the right word. Like I'm not going to go into shock or anything. And I'll just have like a couple days, like stomach ache and be very tired, or almost like, it's like a feverish tired.
Usually not worth it.
Not worth it, but it's like if I do, I know I'm not gonna like die.
Right.
Which is good. I'm grateful for that. But yeah, that's kind of the backstory.
Do you talk about it a lot? Like, in other words, I don't know. Do you talk about it a lot? Like, do you find, because I feel like anytime I have an amazing athlete who has got a story like that, I think it resonates with a lot of people, right? And it's like, especially for somebody who also has celiac, they're like, oh man, how inspirational that Paige can accomplish this kind of stuff. Yeah. Do you, and if you don't, is it because you don't like to talk about it, or just haven't presented the opportunity necessarily?
I do think I talk about it quite a bit, and I feel like the hardest part about celiac is it's such a social thing, and it's never like, I love to go out and like hang out with people, but it always involves food for the most part. And it's never like, I can't just go out with a group and like go to a restaurant. Like I always have to look at the menu before. And then, so I think it's more of like a social thing where it's like, oh, hey, if like I'm invited, I'm like, hey, can you send the restaurant so I can like look up the menu, make sure I can at least get something, or like be prepared to not maybe just like get a salad or something.
Right.
And they're always like, oh yeah, like how come? And I have to like kind of go back and tell the whole story, of like, I mean, a lot of people just don't know what celiac is either. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I do kind of like talking about it too. And like, I know that it's changed my life, and it's changed my dad's life as well. He didn't know he had celiac before I did, because I guess it's something where it can sit dormant, and sometimes people just don't have any symptoms at all. So he was that way, and my whole family had to be tested. Well, like immediate family had to be tested to see if they had it, because there's like a 1 in 10 chance that like you pass it on to your kid.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, they had to test my brother, mom, dad. Thank God my brother didn't have it, because that's all he eats is gluten.
You would have been lost.
Yeah. Mom didn't have it, but my dad did. So for years he like refused to go gluten-free. And then there was like kind of a pivotal time. He has like cancer, and he was like on his treatments, and he couldn't get one of his treatments because of his liver enzymes being elevated. And he was like, well, I can't afford to do this, because it's my really only option to like beat this thing. And he went home, researched it, and like celiac, if you're eating gluten and have it, it can raise your liver enzymes. So he went gluten-free. Like, changed the rest of like his path with treatments. So that was something that was super cool. It was like kind of a pain in the butt whenever I was first diagnosed.
Sure.
And bagels were my thing. That was like the thing that I missed the most. And I've definitely have a sweet tooth. But looking back now, it was like really cool how God worked that in like my life, and like I had to go through all of that for my dad to like find out that he had it, and like ended up saving his life.
Wow.
So yeah, it's something that's like, it doesn't sound like, I guess, super serious, but it ended up like saving him. So
That's incredible.
yeah,
That's
super
incredible.
cool.
You said, I didn't know that story yet, and I'd love to learn more about your dad's cancer journey, but what a cool kind of full circle that helped to save him.
Yeah.
Bailey told me to ask you about gluten-free desserts. Is that your jam?
Yeah. I love baking too. And my kick right now is gluten-free cinnamon rolls. And I've had a couple people tell me that they're the best cinnamon rolls they've ever had, like gluten-free or not.
I've been told I'm the best judge of cinnamon rolls, so you should probably hook me up, and then
perfect. I'll make some this weekend.
we'll get to the bottom of it.
Yeah. You'll be the judge of that.
That's cool. Yeah, I don't think, again, I think just to reiterate, I think I don't know, you guys are so superhuman that it's really cool and inspirational for people to hear, like, oh, here's my really human part of me that, you guys could overcome whatever you got going on as well. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you.
You're a very young lady, but you've got a lot of years now of competition experience, starting at, so were you 15 the first year that you competed, and then you went 16 and 17s, third place in both of those categories. We had COVID 2020 was a COVID year. And then by 2022, you were competing with the grown women.
And the big dogs.
Yeah, with the big dogs. And then, of course, 2023, a 10th place finish. Mm-hmm. So I'm interested to hear from you, looking back at it so far, like your body of work so far. What really stands out? Like, what really kind of makes you proud?
I think just like the dedication and the times of defeat, where I think that's just naturally in me. I'm so stubborn to like not let things go. And I was dead set on like making this a career. Yeah. And it was something where I like really just threw myself in. Like my first year, I really didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know much about the CrossFit Games. And I thought, the teenage, like that was it. Like that was the main thing, until the next year I was like, oh dang, like I want to like be an elite someday. I want to make this my job. And so I think just like not giving up in the times where I wanted to, or where I didn't feel worthy enough to make it. And that was like specifically like in 21 when I didn't qualify. And I think that was super hard, because that was when I decided to take a gap year and like make it like focus on making it my job. And it was kind of like a kick in the face, because I was so far away from qualifying that year that I was like, oh shoot, like I don't know if I can actually do this.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, that's where I really had to rely on, like, you know, my parents' support, especially with the financials, because, you know, like I wasn't making barely anything. I was making enough to pay for groceries every month through a sponsorship. And I'm like, I didn't want to have to depend on my parents. But I'm very grateful that, like, I did and they allowed me to kind of, like, get on my feet for the next year. But, yeah, just, like, sticking it through in times that I didn't think I was good enough to, like, make it.
Yeah, I love that answer, because it's not like, oh, this place finished or this particular year in this particular event. It's really just what people don't see, which is how hard you guys work on a consistent basis all the time. Is it hard for you not to get caught up in results?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's something, like, where it's growing and evolving, but, like, where my faith comes into play.
Yeah.
And it's truly, like, I have to sit here and look at an eternal perspective of, like, when I die, like, I want to be welcomed into heaven, and God's not going to care whether I got 10th place at the games, 25th place at the games, didn't make the games at all. Like, that's not what God focuses on. So that's kind of like a shift for me to, like, actively work on how can I be the best servant of Christ through CrossFit. And that's, like, kind of my goal this year, because even last year I was like, I remember, you know, I always set, like, expectations on myself that I don't know are maybe realistic. I try to be as realistic as possible, but I always want to do, like, the best I possibly can. And last year, like, on Saturday of the CrossFit Games, I just didn't think I was where I was supposed to be. And I kind of, like, broke down because of my finish. And that's where I was like, I had to have, like, a real talk with my mom of, like, this isn't what defines me. Like, getting a top 10 finish, getting a first place finish, getting whatever finish you get in CrossFit isn't what defines me. And there's so much more to, like, who I am. And that's, like, where I find that in Christ. So yeah, that's kind of, like, what I'm focusing on more this year is, like, shifting my goals of, like, yes, I can still go out there and, like, be great. But I want to focus more on, like, the relationships and, like, how God truly uses CrossFit and, like, putting my will aside to live in God's will. And in the past, it was kind of more of, like, I've had this, like, hashtag that I've been using for a couple years now, for His glory. And I always made it for my glory, but said I was going to give Him the credit. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I've learned this year is, like, you can't do that. That isn't truly, like, for His glory and for His kingdom's glory. It's submitting to God's will and living in God's will that glorifies Him. And it's like, I've learned that I can do that through CrossFit, through conversations in the grocery store, through literally just living, whether, you know, I'm doing CrossFit or not, whether I'm working in a coffee shop, you know, have a different job. It doesn't matter what I physically do, but it's living out the day to day, like, in a Christly life. So,
which is really, really hard, not just to say, but especially to do. You know what I mean? And especially in sport, where you know, in some ways, just by what's promoted and, like, what gets the most attention, it is, like, you're almost encouraged to, like, thump your chest. Oh, look at me and look at do this. So I really respect that about you. And I'm sure though that it's still a constant, I don't even say challenge, but it's a constant exercise of reminding yourself to do that and trying to, like, use that hashtag and make sure that you're constantly leading with your faith and doing that. And I think you do a really good job of that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we started the conversation, it's interesting. I think that I would love to hear your opinion. In the CrossFit space right now, a few high-level CrossFit females have dropped out. And I don't know if I don't know what your opinion is, if it is a particularly difficult time for young females, or if it's just, something in our sport that these particular individuals had their own stuff going on and they needed to drop out. Like, do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. I think it's, definitely like, uniquely tailored to each different individual.
Yeah. I'm not asking you to speak for other people. I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, do you feel, for you personally, you're a young lady, you got a lot of attention on you. Do you feel like that's a particularly difficult thing, or do you think that's part of being an athlete in any sport, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I will say it is harder having, like, kind of the spotlight or attention on you, because then it's like you have your own pressure on yourself, but then you have other people that constantly have you, like, under the spectacle, and they're constantly, it almost feels like judging in a way, whether it's like, they're trying to support you or not. And it's like with the females that have, like, dropped out, or anybody that has, like, dropped out, it's like you kind of go through the comments and it's like people are harsh on social media.
Oh, dude, no matter what.
Yeah, and they're going to sit here and say that they're your supporters and they're following you and they're like a number on a screen, but that's really, like, all they are. And it's like, I mean, I'm very grateful to everybody that, like, has supported me, and, like, even the people I don't know that have cheered me on. But it's like the people that are within your group and the people who know and love you that are the ones who truly support you, and, like, your happiness. And I do think it's, like, individual to, like, everyone. But I do think kind of a lot of people are finding out that their worth isn't put in their placement. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, okay, from there, where do we go? Like, if I'm not trying to constantly chase first place in CrossFit, what's the point of doing it?
Right.
And that's where, like, for me, that's where my faith comes into play.
Yeah.
Because I can sit back and rely on that and the greater purpose of doing this rather than only doing it to get first place.
Yeah, I mean, really the pursuit of an excellent life, like your parents told you to take a gap year because you've got these gifts and a unique opportunity to show them off. And I love that you're using them to glorify God as well. And I don't know. Hopefully that's not an uncomfortable question. It's just something that's a really popular talking point right now. And
Absolutely.
As a father who, I always laugh because when I see you, I'm just like, oh, it's just Paige. And then I'm like, oh, I'm Paige's parents' age. And actually, like, you're closer in age to my kids, But I think about, I've got a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old, and the social media impact on not just athletes, but the world in general is, like, it's a really tough one to navigate. And I sat with Guy, I guess 2 weeks ago, and even it's not just a girl problem; it's a person problem.
Everyone
like
problem. Yeah.
But there's nobody who's, like, immune to all the negativity. Some people could probably shake it off better than others, but nobody's immune to people firing kind of bullets at you.
Yeah, it does kind of, like, even if you tell yourself it's not going to, it does kind of sit in the back of your mind.
Yes.
Or, like, the pressure coming from other people that you don't even know.
Yep.
Like, it does kind of sit in the back of your mind.
Did you what was the first how young were you when you got social media? Just out of curiosity.
I think I actually scrolled back the other day to my first Instagram post. I think that's the first social media I have, and it was 2017. Okay. But I think I had it before that, just didn't, like, post.
Okay. And there wasn't probably the same pressures and stuff.
No.
Yeah.
No. I literally, like, the first picture that I posted was, like, shooting clay pigeons.
Right.
Like, just random with, like,
just me being a person.
Yeah, I think the caption was, like, clay pigeons with, like, a heart.
Love it.
It was like, it was so stupid, but
it's all a learning process.
Yeah, now it's like, it's a completely, like, different game. Social media feels like.
Oh,
you have
100%.
to, like, think everything out and
if it's your job and
be intentional.
You got a lot. There's so many angles to it that we don't have time to fix social media. But I do think that your outlook is really important, and really investing your self-worth and how you see yourself, not in what other people do or a leaderboard placement, but in God, because there's the one way is a ticket to unhappiness and and turmoil. let's finish on something a little bit lighter, or some things a little bit lighter. You and I share an obsession with Broncos.
Yes.
But I feel like you're going to get one long before I ever do.
I don't know about that.
Where did it come from? Like, there's, obviously it's just a love, but when did you first kind of fall in love with Broncos?
Gosh, I think the first time I like fell in love with a Bronco was when Darren's Bronco was shipped from Tennessee to Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
I was just sitting in JJ's driveway for a while, and I was like, oh yeah, it's like pretty cool. I've always loved trucks. Like I've always been a truck girl or SUV girl. And that was like, I had like seen Broncos before, but not like the older ones. Yeah. Much. And yeah, it was sitting there, and I'd like kind of like peek in there every day. And that is like, I don't know, after that it was just like full blown, like I'd go back, look at like 60s, 70s, like fully restored ones.
Oh,
I'm like,
so nice.
I need one of those one day. Yeah.
And what people do you like the new release? Not like a updated old 60s model.
Yeah. I do.
Yeah.
I do, but I think personally for me it really has to be like outdone. So like, because some of them kind of just look like Jeeps. Yeah,
or just kind of like I don't know how to say this, like a little too like aerodynamic and new school. You know what I'm saying? Like I want the boxy.
Yes, the boxy, like kind of
metal box.
Looking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, a Bronco's a Bronco. Like I like all Broncos. Besides Bronco Sport, it's not a Bronco. It shouldn't be named Bronco. I'm sorry to anybody that has one. It's a nice car. It's just not a Bronco.
I could not agree more. It's a smaller version, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more.
It's like a Jeep Renegade.
And those came out before, or maybe I just saw one of those before I saw the big version.
Oh, no, they came out before.
Yeah. And because somebody asked me and I was like, oh, they're terrible.
Yeah.
They're terrible. And then I saw a real one. I was like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
I would drive that, but no way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And no apologies to any viewers.
No, not unapologetic.
But if anybody wants to put Paige in a Bronco, we probably wouldn't say no.
No, I definitely wouldn't say no.
All right, your body's in short-term disarray, but it's going to be just fine, I'm sure, when your lats calm down.
Yeah.
Emotionally and mentally, you seem like you're in a great place. Mm-hmm. What, if any, are your goals for 2024? It could be competitive or it could just be personal.
Yeah, I think the goals are definitely more personal this year. I kind of want to take the emphasis off the competitive part. And I think that's the hardest challenge for me because naturally I'm such a competitive person. Yeah. But I think that I've been placing a lot of my worth in like what I do place. And it's like, that's for me, that's a constant battle. So literally just taking it like day by day and truly allowing God to use this sport for his glory, and like submitting to his plan, and not mine. And I think that I can still do that healthily while competing. And he did give me a competitive edge for a reason, but just not to fully indulge myself into that, into like the worldly fleshy desires of competing, and just have like a mindset shift of like what that looks like this year. I'm still trying to figure that out, and it's a day by day thing. But yeah, I'm excited because it feels different this year than it has in the past. And I'm trying to like still figure out what that looks like, but yeah, just gonna be a day to day journey.
God, I can't. We'll wrap up soon. I promise. I'll let you go. But what feels different? Or how do you mean?
I think that's kind of tough. But I don't know. I do think this year has been harder mentally for me. And I don't know. It's just I've never felt like I've just been competing for so long that I've never felt like taking the emphasis off of competing. I don't know if this like makes sense, but it's a different mindset shift. And it's not something that I've ever felt through like the probably 15 years that I've been competing in some sort of sport. So I don't know.
But so far it feels good. Like whatever this feeling is, like it feels right. It feels good.
Yeah. It's different, but it's good.
Cool.
And it's like, I know that it's like for a greater purpose.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited to, see what this season will look like.
Me too. And excited to hopefully have you back and keep rocking. But I appreciate your time and kind of, I don't know, being vulnerable and letting people know a little bit more about who you are. Cause obviously, they love you, but I think it's important that people get to understand more about you guys than just being athletes. But loved having you. I appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, ma'am.
It's great.